Hello, good day all. This is Josiah again on H1 Teach 1. This is probably going to be the last video for me this year. I wish you all well and thank you for watching this. Before we start, I would like to thank Lockdown and Alusi, and as well as our implementation partner, H1 Teach 1 Tech. Today, I would like to talk about a very controversial topic, but the presentation here is solely for scientific purposes. The aim is to draw some kind of attention to the work of the ancient, to bring the ancient to the currency of technology. Therefore, the Alusi or RC technology is what we're going to address, and we're going to look at how it enters the modern day technology. Before we start, I'd like to give you a disclaimer. The disclaimer is that whatever I'm presenting today is not the opinion of any organization that I'm affiliated with or any entity that I do business with. This is basically work done, it's a scientific work done, and the correlation is what we're drawing and bringing attention to the need of connecting to one's basis of ethnic background, because we've found the possibility that it possibly will open the pathways in the mind, because the universe is a mental one, and if the pathways are opened, it will bring back your creativity. That is that's the very objective of this work. And to move forward, we'll present from a qualitative perspective, rather quantitative perspective will come a little later. And I wanted to remind every one of you about the work that I did in the past regarding, this piece is a little too loud, regarding Afar or Ifar, the Oracle of all oracles. In that article, I made it very clear that there's a connection between the one's performance in computer science as to understanding the philosophy behind the Afar, which is principle of 16. It's based on the principle of 16. If you know computer science, you understand the hexadecimal encoding is base 16 pretty much. So the same applies here, and it's more pervasive. And this were done, they did this thousands of years. The ancients did this thousands of years. So the work I'm going to talk about is based on the cosmological understanding of a group of people found in southeast of Nigeria, a country currently known as Nigeria, and the language they speak is called Igbo, and their language is Igbo, and the people as a whole is also known as Igbo people. So that's interesting, and I speak the language fluently, and I also write the language superfluously. So to start, the topic is Alusi or Alusi technology. So the question is, what is Alusi? So we can say that casually that anything that can perform mechanical work is Alusi or Alusi. But there are deeper meaning to that as we go ahead and as we progress in this disclosure. Now, when you look at the Alusi progression from the growth to the science of Agwu, and when I say Agwu, I mean a body of knowledge that is unending. Pretty much, that's what Agwu means. Agwu, unending. Okay? So when you look at the timeline, you have Alusi Agwu before BC, before Christ, so 500 before Christ, and you have in the 10th century, looking at the guns that were made by other countries. Typically, the Chinese, they started playing with guns. I'm sure the ancients of my ethnic background had guns, but it wasn't recorded, and there was no literal, until later that it was found that they were making guns as well. And now you look at the Industrial Revolution. One of the things that started was the discovery of machines, that men can make machines that will perform work for them, which the ancients were already doing. And now you have the Carl-Benz car. Back then, in 1895, Carl-Benz car, the German guy that made awesome cars. So this is the timeline, and let's look at the pictorial here. So you have in before Christ, the BC era, you have the Alusi. These are images, graven images, made out of wood or other stuff like metal, bronze, and that was made in it many power, and in it they trap this power in them, and we'll talk about more about that. And then you're looking in the middle here, the what you call the lances, the fire lances, which is pretty much regular spear heads, and they are fitted with gunpowder, which allows them the capability to fly at astronomical speed with much momentum, and this could cause irreparable damages on any object they hit. And now you have the Lamborghini right there with the wings up, as we see today in our streets in big cities. This kind of machines, very powerful machines, and very modern too. So when you look at the progression, you see one is doing this, and one is kind of bringing it closer to what it's supposed to be, and one is making it look like what we are familiar with today. So the familiarization, does it mean that it has never been achieved or done before? No, the answer is no. So the lack of understanding what the ancients did doesn't mean that they didn't do it. Okay? So that's why we say that Agwu speaks science and technology. We must understand how the Alusi enters modern science. We must understand the philosophy behind these. These are the untainted realities of the world we live in. The world we live in is a mental one. The knowledge that never ends, Agwu, truly speaks science and technology, as we'll find out later. Now that we've looked at the science, how the Agwu enters the science, where in fact it speaks science, let's look at the science as we know it, starting from the most fundamental, say physics, Newtonian physics. In Newtonian physics, or classical physics, the first thing we're taught is about, the graph, time coordinates, distance over time, velocity, and all of that, displacement, speed, and etc. And with that, we are being prepared for work, energy. First, we learn about force, momentum, and all of that, acceleration. Then they continue to force and energy and power and etc. etc. Now, in my mother tongue, in the language of that I speak, which is Igbo, distance is none other but njem, ije, njem. Okay. Now you have time is none other but oge or oge. We denote them by n, small letter n to be precise, for njem, and small letter o for oge. With that being said, and let's go back to the Newtonian physics, the spooky action at a distance, the force that Newton talked about and we learned in classical physics. Now, in my language, this force is known as mo. It simply means that if force means is force times distance is equal to energy, it simply means that more times njem will give you Ike. Ike is the same thing as energy. Now, take that a little bit further. Einstein was not a proponent of the spooky force action at a distance, which is the force that Newton was talking about. The force that comes from nowhere and it does action, it does something. So Einstein was heavily against that, and that's why he postulated that E is actually equal to mc squared, which is mass times the square of the speed of light. In some medium, granted, the speed of light is a constant. So Einstein saw energy from this perspective. But the ancients have already done the same thing. Now, in the work of Einstein, take for example Brownian motion, he explained it very well, and then photoelectric effect, he explained it very well. With photoelectric effect and the understanding of it, we are able to build the plasma TV, modern day TV, and anything that can display is because of photoelectric effect. that when light hits certain objects, subatomic particles, they were able to emit photons. They will emit photons. You talk about phosphorus and all that kind of stuff. These are some of the elements that can do these things. So with that knowledge, we were equipped, and this is what Agwu is all about: unending knowledge. It is the branch and the department in Igbo cosmology that has to do with creativity, science, art, technology. That's Agwu, Yamama, Agwu. Now, with that being said, we now can see that power itself is the same energy over time. As simple as that. The spooky action at a distance over time. You see? That's it over time. So you have the Kenga in my mother tongue. Power will now becomes a Kenga. The Ike over the Oge. Oge is time, Ike is the energy. And now you start to understand why it is important to understand science in your own native and ethnic background, in the foundation of your ethnic background. This is why it is in the cosmology, because you cannot take a fruit that you know very well grows only in California and tries to bring it to Boston or any other place in the United States to grow it. You very well know it's not going to do well. It doesn't matter the amount of lab research and development you put on there, it's not going to grow well. So the same thing applies to humans. We need brain food. We need knowledge to feed our mind. And what prepares that knowledge that feeds our mind is the philosophy behind that knowledge. And how well can your creativity be if you are cut off from the philosophy, which is a gene, which is a part of your gene, or actually is represented in your gene? If you don't activate that, you will never be creative. Yes, you will do well in school, you make good grades, but you will never create anything that will impact human life. So there's a disconnect where the people, many immigrants and people of different culture who comes and are assimilated in the West, there's a disconnect to who they really are and their creativity, and being able to trigger what will help them to harness and open the pathways, the mental pathways to their creativity. I think this is found in the language they speak and the cosmology behind the culture or ethnic background they belong to. Civilization states as opposed to nation states, these are two different things. One has a people and culture and way of doing things and values to protect, and one has a new way of living which prides itself in being much better than every other. This is a problem here. So we have to weigh this carefully to see how we can impact, to take our background, truly our background, to contribute and help humanity. So Ikenga, when transferred into a black body, becomes Alusi or Alusi. Anything that can serve mechanical function or do work is Alusi. A machine, as it is known in the West, is Alusi in the most basic sense of Igbo body of knowledge, known as Agwu, unending. A body of knowledge that does not end is called Agwu. In Agwu, there are different areas. There's maybe different professions in Agwu. For example, if you have your Agwu, or what they call Agwu Nsi, which is the creativity of mental level that can give you the professorship in emeritus, most of these skill sets are not read in any school. You are assigned to it. Naturally, you are assigned, and this information are given to you. And some people go to school for it, some people go and acquire this knowledge, and many others are assigned it by the so-called forces again. Okay? So a machine is derived from components that can perform work or carry out mechanical functions. Okay? So the people that will do all these things, the specialization in different Agwu areas, like what you have Dibia, which is a doctor here, Or what you have Dinka, which is an engineer or a very good engineer that can build anything. Dinka. As you can understand, I will explain that Nka is pretty much, science. If you are Dinka, that means you have mastered the art of knowing things of science, things that are hidden in human eyes. You can interpret these things and you can make them make sense. So you have the Dibia, the Dinka, you have the Dimba, the one that is perfect in wrestling, and this person can even wrestle unseen things. This is what we're talking about. You have the DK, which is a warrior. This person is a warrior. He goes to war and comes back and defeats the enemies. These are built into the cosmology of Igbo people, and their understanding of the world is already built in the etymology, which is the bigger part of the language that they speak. We can confidently define Alusi thus: when science and technology Nka are compressed into a body, Uzu, capable of mechanical advantage, continuous work is done with or without an end to it. This is our definition of Alusi. Now, with that being said, it means that the applied science or pure science requires the technology to function. Of course, technology goes into a body. Whether inanimate or animate bodies, these, when put together, beget the so-called technology that is doing work like a robot. Alusi, unending. Alusi, the unending work. Remember, the part of the body of knowledge is unending, Agwu. Now, the work is done by a body, which is what? Alusi. The Alusi denotes work that doesn't stop, work that does not stop. So this entity will perform work without bias, prejudice, favor, or an end, unless you put an end to it. However, when you contain power in a space, doesn't mean that it's not doing something. I know that the modern science says a body that's not moving is not doing work. And at the same time, if a body goes from one point and ends at the same point, it's still not doing the work. So this is very interesting. So we have to understand what's going on here. Okay, you start from a position 0 and ends in a position 0. You haven't done anything according to modern day science. But is that true in the ancient science? So let's think about these things now. Let's come out of our creativity and do amazing things. There's always something we can always contribute to the way things are done. And you can only achieve that if you open the pathways of your mental being. The pathways of your mental being had to be open. Once you open it, the creativity shows up. Out of nowhere, you just see it happening like magic. Okay? I don't believe in magic, but I believe in determination, decisiveness, and action. So moving forward, having explained how the power thing works and how the mechanical function work of Alusi comes about, let's go into details of using the English word to actually pose a question, and at the same time pose the same question in the native tongue of the person, which in this case is an Igbo person. Let's see how powerful this is. These acts is being practiced in schools in Japan and China and some part of the Middle East, and they are practicing these things, and you guys will know very well how proficient these people are in science and technology. So let's take a look. So they have the understanding of the science in their native tongue, reflecting their background and cosmology, the way their people see the world, and how these enters their language, the etymological aspect of things. So let's read this question, which is pretty much a high school question. Which of the following formulas correctly shows the relationship between the magnitude of a force, the work done by that force, and the distance moved in the direction of the applied force by the object that the force is applied to? The answer is marked for you, is in green. We read this in English. Yes, I speak English. But let's try this in Igbo and see how the connection is, how clearer things get based on the explanation that I've given so far. Kedu njikọ akala afa gosipụtara ihe dị n'etiti mmụọ njem mmụọ na ntụmatụ ngamije n'ụzọ mmụọ si banye na Alusi? This is not spooky anymore, but when you read it in English, it's all holy and gracious. The same meaning I just read to you in your mother's tongue, which whatever language you speak, translate that to it. You will see for yourself a whole lot of difference. Something just caught you. The light bulb went off. And this is what we are talking about. This is the direction of the teaching of this century. We need every individual to contribute in this dynamic world. We need all the help that we can get because humans are going to uncharted territory. We have to be very careful. We have to be very careful here. So we have looked at mechanical function or work, which is work is force times distance, and force times distance is energy. That means work is energy. All right? That means ọrụ is what? Ike. Ọrụ bụ ike. Ike bụ ọrụ. But this is not how Igbo is spoken. We can say you must have the ike to do work. You must have the ike to do work. Or whatever work you did requires work. Whatever work you did requires energy. That means whatever oral performed by you was performed because you have the energy. You have the ike. So oral, ike, oral. Does that make sense? Is it connected now? So that's the scientific aspect of what we are doing, how it enters the language, and how we should pay attention to what is going on. Now, what is work? I've already explained that work is work. That's so funny. What is work? Olu or oral? So that is the transfer of energy from one body to another. You see, when I explained it in Igbo, it was very, very clear. Oral bụ mgbasapụ ike site n'ofu ihe, ya bụ Alusi, ruo n'ihe ọzọ, ya bụ Alusikwa. Ọ na-esite n'ihe gaa n'ọzọ na-enweghị ọgwụgwụ ma ọ bụ nwee ọgwụgwụ. Na-enweghị ọgwụgwụ ma ọ bụ nwee ọgwụgwụ. You can stop it. If you don't stop it, it keep working. Okay? That's a translation of Alusi in any case, which is a machine. But it plays a part in the definition of work itself. Okay? The transfer of energy from one place to another is actually the work. And actually in the language, spoken language is order, that's the work. This is similar to applying Ike, as I explained before, which is energy, which is more nejozi, the force that works. The force that is going somewhere, that is sending a message on active force. You apply the Ike using a tool which was already defined as Alusi. The tool, the machine, you have many tools making up a machine. That is still a machine. It's known as Alusi. So this tool could be just this tool. Like in Igbo, we have the ofo. Ofo is a staff that you hold. That staff represents justice. When you want to do something, when you want to make a declaration, or you want to speak, you want to speak power of life and death into action, you have to use the offer to do it. It's a symbol of justice. And today, when somebody's in doubt, or a department or a group are doubting somebody based on the kind of work that they do, there's always the lie detector. In criminal justice, there's always a lie detector. Offer is like that. And there are other machines that represent this Alusi in the modern day. So this Alusi, I've shown you the Alusi of Agwu, which is the Alusi of unending knowledge, the Alusi of unending wisdom, which I showed you guys. This is it here. That's that. I've shown it to you guys, and now I'm trying to point out the different kind of these machines with energy in them. This energy are trapped in them, and from time to time, people make these forces do things for them. You can also say that your force, but more, is being displaced through space. That's still energy, and that's work. More is being displaced through the space, which is mbala. That is work at the same time. Look at the picture there, the mechanical work. You see the three people here? The three caricatural people are pulling a heavy load. They were able to pull that heavy load because their force. You see, the energy that they have is more than the weight of what they are pulling. Okay, it's more than the energy of what they are pulling. So when you have the force times distance, that's energy, and the people are using energy to pull that mass. That's a mass. And that when that mass is moving, it has momentum over a distance. Okay? So you can have that momentum with the velocity at which it's moving. That's equivalent to the energy, which is the same thing as force times distance. So when you have a moving body, it has an acceleration. That acceleration, when you multiply it by the mass, you get a force. When you take the force and multiply it by the distance, you get what? Energy. And the people that are pulling that mass has more energy than the energy that they are pulling. In other words, they have more Ike than the Ike that they are trying to destroy or pull or bring to a final destination. So having the understanding of a particular subject in your native tongue, which is a part of your culture, explained to you in the way that you view the world, that's cosmology, gives you the ability to open the pathways to the universe so that you can tap information and your creativity will come back to you. Now moving forward, we can see here that applied science requires a body to function as a technology basis, whether animate or inanimate bodies. These, when put together, beget technology doing unending work. And that's what we call Alusi. This entity will perform work without bias, prejudice, favor, or an end. Alusi again. Alusi and Alusi, the same thing, depending on the dialect. They change the R, and some still change the R to L. So, in modern day, what are the examples of Alusi? Your gun is Alusi. Your TV is Alusi. Your car is Alusi. Your cell phone is Alusi. Your refrigerator is Alusi. To be precise, a gun is a power object, just like every other power object that was ever discovered in the African continent. A gun is a power object, Alusi, requiring one to make forceful declaration, speaking power of life and death into action. The gun will kill the enemy as well as the one that wields it. Now, for example, somebody is invading your home, and you have your wife and kids, and you have your gun, and you pull out the gun and warn them, well, a shot. You are making a declaration, forceful declaration, and you're telling them to get out of here, and they refuse to, and they were advancing, and they want to shoot you, and you finally shot at them. If you shoot them in a bad place, they will not exist anymore. They will be gone. They will go into space and become a part of the energy, and they will be transferred to Netherlands. Now, if you take the same gun and point it to yourself and shoot yourself, same happens to you. Now, what are we saying here? We are saying that these power objects could be put to use by anyone that knows how to extract powers from them and use them effectively. It is typical because it has a mechanical advantage, and we do what it's asked to do regardless of who is asking them to do it. But remember, there's always a recoil when you shoot a gun. There's a repercussion. Always remember that part. And there's always good in anything, and there's always bad in anything. You choose what you want. The oppressors or those who begrudge you or anyone that puts obstacle in your way knows this. And many of them are buying these power objects from wherever they can find it on the planet, and they use them because they understand these powers could be extracted and moved to other bodies to perform certain functions. Airplanes, cars, whatever. If you can find and understand these deep things or subtle things of nature which are trapped in power objects, you can use it for other things for humanity. So what are the two things that are required to be able to extract these powers? You need remembrance and promises. As you can see, we all have several power objects Alusi in our homes. It's not funny anymore. We all got them. So now, let's take a look at our soldier friend here and see what he's doing. Remember I told you you need remembrance and promise to be able to do what? To get the Alusi to be working, to get the machine to be working. And what is that? A soldier keeps the gun in a sacred place. I must remember that gun. That is what we call ncheta. And we could keep most of our things of value in sacred places. These things include our machines and things that can transfer, can do work or have mechanical advantages. A soldier promises the gun regular maintenance or anointing. That is what we call nkwa. That is a promise. See, here is remembrance. It's just like you go to school and you're studying for a particular profession. That means you are studying the Agwu of a specific thing. You become a professor emeritus. That means you are at the height of that skill set or that profession. For you to get to that level, you must do what? You have to remember your books, read or study them. Make sure you anoint those books. And you learn, you have the objective of each study or lesson in the book. And that is what we are talking about here. Same two things that you require to get that certificate in that body of knowledge. So without these two things, I don't think any machine can perform as required. Even in our minds, anything you can think of. Like I said, the world we live in is a mental world. And I urge you to further investigate this, what I'm showing you. In the near future, I will show you more stuff, more areas covered over time. These are new discoveries. Well, these are not new discoveries, but they are being recognized and reconnected to in the present time. And there is a connection between the ancient technology, way of doing things, their sacred science, which most of the time we believe are mystical. But are they really mystical, or are they just spooky action at a distance because we didn't understand it until Einstein explained what it is, and then later quantum mechanics explain in detail what's going on with the non-committal nature of subatomic particle. One time they are wave, another time they are particles. What's going on here? That's the same thing the ancients were telling us, that sometimes you have body and you have the forces, or what they call the spirit in English, and these things are the same but they live in different realms. And the spirit can't come to the body here, can't interact in the physical world without a body, and vice versa. That's the same thing they're teaching us. But we didn't have the mind to understand it. I believe we need to pay attention to these things and study them further so that we can open the pathways of understanding science in the ways that allow us to be an active contributors to humanity. Our pathways, opening our pathways, we will open up our creativity or bring back our creativity. So this is the essence of my topic today, and I hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, this is Josiah on Each One Teach One. I have signed off. Take care all.